There was a version of you that was difficult to ignore. Not loud, not aggressive, not demanding, just solid. The kind of presence that filled a room quietly. The kind of person whose word meant something. Not because they gave it freely, but because they gave it rarely. Somewhere along the way, that person started to soften. Not all at once. It never happens all at once. It happened the first time you said yes when every part of you wanted to say no. It happened the second time you stayed quiet when you should have spoken. It happened every morning you woke up and arranged your day around someone else's comfort. Someone who never once arranged theirs around yours. And now here you are, looking around at the life you've built, the relationships you've maintained, the energy you've poured out, and something feels deeply, unmistakably wrong. You are surrounded by people and still feel invisible. You give and give and give, and what comes back is not gratitude. It is expectation. It is assumption. It is the quiet, devastating belief that you will always be there, always be available, always say yes. Because you always have been. Here is what no one tells you. You were not born to melt. You were not placed on this earth to be poured into every mold someone else holds up. You were born iron, forged, purposeful, hard-wearing. But iron, when exposed to the wrong conditions for long enough, doesn't stay iron. It corrodes. Today, we are going to talk about what it means to reclaim the metal you were made from. We are going to talk about why the world reshapes those who allow it, and how the Stoics, more than 2,000 years ago, already understood what most people never learn in a lifetime. If that speaks to something in you, something tired, something hungry for a different way of living, stay with me. This is not a video about anger. It is not a call to close yourself off from the world. It is an invitation to remember what you were before the world got its hands on you, and to decide what you will be now that you know better. If this is your first time here, welcome to the Inner Citadel, a place built for people who are done drifting and ready to rebuild from the inside out. If that is you, subscribe now and stay close. What we discuss here is not surface level. It never is. Part 1. The slow erosion. How you became something unrecognizable. No one sets out to disappear. You did not wake up one morning and decide that your time was worthless, that your needs were secondary, that your presence was something to be apologized for. That belief was installed gradually, quietly, the way rust works. You never see it forming. You only notice it when something that used to be strong has become brittle. Think about the first time someone took something from you, your time, your energy, your loyalty, and gave nothing back. Maybe you were young. Maybe it was someone you loved. Maybe you told yourself it was generosity, that you were being the bigger person, that one day they would see it. One day, the ledger would balance. But it didn't balance. It never does. Because the moment you absorbed that imbalance without consequence, you sent a message. Not with your words, with your behavior. And that message was this: taking from me is safe. There will be no cost. And they learned. People always learn. They learn through repetition, through pattern, through the consistent signal your actions broadcast into the world. When you answered every call immediately, you taught them your time was on demand. When you rearranged your schedule to accommodate theirs, you taught them your plans were negotiable. When you swallowed your discomfort and smiled anyway, you taught them your feelings did not factor into the equation. This is not a condemnation. It is an observation. Most of the people watching these words were not weak. They were kind. They were generous. They believed, sincerely, that giving of yourself was the measure of your character, that service to others was a virtue. And it can be. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, one of the most powerful men in the ancient world, wrote daily reminders to himself about duty, about contribution, about the obligation to serve something larger than the self. But even Marcus Aurelius, who gave everything to an empire, knew that service rendered from a place of depletion was not virtue. It was damage. He wrote in his private journals, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The strength he speaks of is not physical. It is not even willpower in the conventional sense. It is the strength of the person who has located their own center and refuses to be pulled away from it by the constant gravitational pull of other people's needs. You have been pulled for a long time, and the pulling has cost you something that is very difficult to name but impossible to ignore. A certain quality of confidence, a certain ease in your own skin, the simple, grounded certainty that who you are is worth protecting. That is what was eroded. Not your talent, not your intelligence, not your capacity for love or growth or greatness, just your willingness to protect those things. But willingness is recoverable. That is where we begin. Part 2. The architecture of surrender, what your yes has been building. There is a structure to every life, a framework built out of thousands of small decisions that determines how the world treats you. Most people never examine this framework. They inherit it. They reinforce it. They live inside it for decades without ever asking who designed it, or whether it was designed with their well-being in mind. Your framework, the invisible set of rules that governs how people interact with you, was built largely by your agreements. The things you said yes to when you should have paused. The times you offered your energy before it was even asked of you. The moments you made yourself small so that someone else could feel large. Every one of those moments was a brick, and you have been building, without realizing it, a structure that invites trespass. Here is the uncomfortable truth the Stoics would want you to sit with. No one can use you without your cooperation. Not fully, not sustainably. The people who treat you as expendable, who call only when they need something, who take without reciprocating, who speak to you as though your time has no value. They did not simply decide to behave this way. They discovered they could. Epictetus knew this. A man who began his life as a literal slave and became one of antiquity's greatest philosophical minds. He had every reason to believe that his circumstances defined him, that the will of others was the ceiling of his existence. Instead, he built an entire philosophy around one radical idea. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the opinions about things. What does that mean for you here now? It means that the discomfort you feel when you consider saying no, that spike of anxiety, that wave of guilt, that whisper that says you will lose something if you hold your ground, that is not reality. That is an opinion, a learned response, a pattern your nervous system was trained into by years of prioritizing other people's comfort over your own. And what is learned can be unlearned. The architecture of surrender was built slowly. It will not be dismantled in a single day, but it is dismantled one deliberate refusal at a time, one boundary drawn and held at a time, one moment of choosing your own peace over someone else's expectation at a time. And here is what changes when you begin that work. People stop assuming. They start considering. They stop reaching for you automatically, the way you reach for something you know will always be there. They begin to treat your presence as something that must be earned, because they have learned, through your actions, that it can be withheld. That is not cruelty. That is consequence. And consequence is the language the world actually speaks. Your job is to start speaking it. Part 3. The rarity principle. Why your presence must cost something. Consider the nature of value. Not financial value, deeper than that. The value of anything in human experience is almost never purely about its qualities. It is about its availability. The rarest things in the world command not just attention, but reverence. People travel across continents, spend fortunes, rearrange entire lives to encounter what cannot easily be found. Now consider yourself. Not metaphorically, literally. How available are you? How quickly do you respond? How rapidly do you rearrange your priorities when someone else signals a need? How often do you show up before you are even asked? If the answer is very, very available, then you have, without intending to, flooded your own market. You have made yourself so accessible that access to you requires nothing. No effort, no investment, no consideration of whether the exchange is fair. And the human mind, ancient, primal, wired for survival, does not treasure what costs nothing. It cannot. The brain that learned to survive on this planet learned to assign value through effort. What you work for, you protect. What arrives freely, you consume. The Stoics understood this not as a cynical observation about human nature, but as a call to self-governance. Seneca wrote, "Everything is alien to us. Only time is truly ours. Your time, your attention, your energy. These are not renewable in the way we like to pretend. Each day ends. Each hour spent cannot be retrieved. And when you give these finite, irreplaceable things away without deliberation, to people who have not earned them, to situations that do not deserve them, you are not being generous. You are being careless with the only currency that actually matters." So what does it look like to reclaim scarcity? It does not look like coldness. It does not look like playing games or manufacturing distance as manipulation. It looks like this. You begin to make your time deliberate. You stop responding immediately simply because immediacy has become your default. You stop offering your presence at the first request. You start choosing, truly choosing, when and to whom you give your energy. And something remarkable happens. The people around you recalibrate. Those who only ever wanted easy access, who valued you for your availability more than your actual self, those people drift. And the ones who remain, the ones who meet your new standard without complaint, they begin to show up differently, with more care, with more reciprocity, with the quiet recognition that being in your life is a privilege, not a given. You do not have to become hard to become rare. You simply have to become intentional. The iron does not become more valuable by becoming aggressive. It becomes more valuable by being handled only by those who know what to do with it. Know who deserves your medal. Part 4. The weight of stillness. What you communicate before you speak. There is something the most commanding people in any room seem to understand instinctively. Something that takes others years to learn, if they learn it at all. Power does not require volume. Watch the person who does not scramble to fill every pause. Watch the individual who, when questioned or challenged or spoken over, does not immediately rush to defend, explain, or justify. Watch what happens in the room when someone simply holds their ground in silence. Other people become uncertain. The energy shifts. The one who is speaking too much, too fast, too desperately, they begin to feel the weight of their own noise. And the still one, the quiet one, without saying a single word, has altered the entire dynamic. This is not a trick. This is not performance. This is one of the oldest principles the Stoics ever articulated, dressed in modern clothing. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change." Notice the posture in that statement. It is not defensive. It is not reactive. It is the posture of someone so rooted in their own ground that challenge does not threaten them. They can receive it, examine it, and respond, rather than react. That distinction between response and reaction is everything. When you react, you are being moved by the world. When you respond, you are moving through it deliberately. And the space between stimulus and response, that pause, that breath, that moment of stillness, is where your actual power lives. How often do you rush to fill that space? How often do you apologize for a silence you did not need to apologize for? How often do you explain yourself before you've even been asked for an explanation? How often do you speak not because you have something meaningful to say, but because the quiet makes you uncomfortable? The discomfort of silence is a trained response. Most of us were taught, implicitly, that silence was a problem to be solved. That gaps in conversation were social failures. That the quickest path to acceptance was to fill every space with warmth, with words, with self-effacement. But the Stoics knew better. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." There is wisdom in restraint. There is authority in the person who speaks rarely but precisely. When you stop trying to win every room with words, when you stop performing your worth through constant sound, something shifts. People begin to listen differently when you do speak. They pay attention because they have learned that you do not waste breath. Your silence teaches them to value your voice. And there is something else silence does that words cannot. It forces others to sit with themselves. When you do not rush to rescue someone from an awkward pause, when you do not immediately offer a softening word after delivering a difficult truth, you allow the weight of reality to settle. You let the moment breathe. And in that breathing space, people often arrive at truths they would never have found if you had talked over them. The strongest tree in the forest is not the loudest. It is the one with the deepest roots. Be the tree with deep roots. Be still enough that the wind moves around you. Your silence is not absence. It is substance. Part 5. The lie of endless accommodation. What people-pleasing actually costs. Let's name something that rarely gets named honestly. The need to please is not generosity. At its root, in most of us, it is fear. Fear that if you disappoint someone, they will leave. Fear that if you hold a boundary, you will be seen as difficult. Fear that your value to the people around you is conditional on your usefulness. And the moment you stop being useful, you become disposable. That fear is understandable. It is human. In some contexts, historically, socially, it made sense. But in your life, as you are living it now, it is destroying you quietly. Because here is what endless accommodation actually produces. It produces a version of you that no longer recognizes itself. A version that has agreed to so many things it did not want, absorbed so many disappointments it did not deserve, and smiled through so much pain it was not supposed to carry, that the original self, the iron self, has been buried under layers of performance. And people, the very people you have been so careful to please, do not respect this version of you. They may depend on it. They may even be fond of it, but they do not respect it. Because respect is not given to the one who molds themselves to fit. Respect is reserved for the one who arrives already whole and says, without apology, "This is who I am. This is what I will accept. This is where I end and where you begin." Seneca wrote, with characteristic bluntness, "Withdraw into yourself." And that is exactly what people-pleasing prevents. It keeps you perpetually exteriorized, oriented outward, calibrated to others' reactions, always monitoring the temperature of the room. Never still, never truly home inside yourself. The withdrawal Seneca prescribes is not isolation. It is return. A return to your own values, your own voice, your own sense of what matters and what doesn't. It is the act of consulting yourself, honestly, without the noise of others' expectations, before you act. What would it mean to do that just once today? To pause before you answer. To ask, not will they be disappointed if I say no, but does this align with what I actually value? To give your own needs the same weight you have always given to other people's comfort. The guilt will come. It always does at first. But guilt is not a compass. It is not pointing toward the right thing. It is pointing toward the old pattern, toward the grooves worn into you by years of accommodation. And grooves, however deep, can be filled. New paths can be walked. When you stop making yourself endlessly available, when you stop bending the shape of your life to hold everyone else's weight, you do not lose people. You sort them. The ones who were only there for easy access will leave. And in the space they vacate, something extraordinary can grow. Relationships built not on your compliance, but on your genuine presence. Connections forged not by your fear, but by mutual recognition and respect. Those are the only connections worth having. Stop paying the price of endless accommodation for things that were never worth the cost. Part 6. No explanation required. The authority of the undefended no. There is a habit that signals, more clearly than almost anything else, that someone has not yet claimed their own authority. It is the habit of over-explaining. You recognize it. Someone asks you for something you cannot or do not wish to give. Your time, your money, your energy, your presence. And instead of simply saying no, you build a case. You cite evidence. You offer context. You apologize, qualify, soften, and hedge until the refusal is so buried in justification that it barely registers as a refusal at all. And sometimes, in the architecture of all those words, you lose the thread entirely. You talk yourself back into yes. Every explanation you offer is an opening. It is an invitation for the other person to find the flaw in your reasoning, to poke at your justification until it collapses, to make you feel that your reason was not good enough, and therefore, your no was not valid. But here is the truth that changes everything. Your no does not require a reason. It is a complete sentence. It is a declaration of sovereignty over your own life. And the moment you start defending it, you undermine it. Marcus Aurelius understood this. A man who governed millions never once felt obligated to justify his boundaries to those who crossed them. He wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Self-respect and endless justification cannot coexist. One of them must give way. Think about the people in your life who command the deepest respect. Not the loudest, not the most forceful, but the ones who carry a quiet, unshakable authority. Do they explain themselves constantly? Do they scramble to make sure everyone understands their reasons? Do they soften their boundaries with lengthy apologies? They do not. They decide. They act. They let their decisions stand on their own weight. And they trust themselves enough to know that their conviction is reason enough. That trust, the deep, self-sourced certainty that you are the authority on your own life, is what most of us are still waiting to feel before we act. We think we need to feel confident before we hold the line. But it works in exactly the opposite direction. You hold the line first. The confidence follows. Every time you say no without collapsing into explanation, you build something. A muscle, an internal architecture, a sense of your own solidity. Every time you let your decision stand without defense, you communicate, to yourself as much as to others, that your choices do not require external endorsement. And the world, which is always learning from your behavior, receives that signal. It learns that you cannot be argued out of your own boundaries. It learns that there is no magic combination of words that will reliably produce your compliance. It learns, and this is the crucial thing, that you are someone who knows the difference between their own will and someone else's pressure. The undefended no is not aggression. It is not coldness or indifference. It is the clearest possible statement of self-respect. It says, I know what I will accept and what I won't. I know who I am, and I do not need your agreement to be certain of it. That is iron. Part 7. The Forge. Discipline as the fire that makes you unbreakable. Iron does not begin as something useful. In its raw state, pulled from the earth, it is brittle, impure, full of weaknesses that would cause it to shatter under pressure. It only becomes something reliable, something enduring, something capable of holding its shape under weight, through fire. The forge is not a comfortable place. It is not designed to be. It is designed to create conditions that no other process can replicate. Heat intense enough to change the internal structure of the metal, to burn away the impurities, to realign the very composition of the material into something that was not possible before the fire. That is what discipline is for. Not punishment. Not self-denial for its own sake. Not a grim, joyless march through obligation. Discipline, in the Stoic tradition, is the daily practice of choosing who you are becoming over who you are comfortable being. It is the small, consistent decisions, each one apparently minor, each one collectively transformative, that remake a person from the inside out. Every morning you choose your own agenda before someone else fills it. That is the forge. Every time you hold a boundary that costs you something. Every time you let someone's disappointment exist without rushing to fix it. Every time you sit in the discomfort of saying no and do not reach for the quick relief of yes. That is the forge. Epictetus, who endured conditions most of us cannot imagine, said something that cuts through every comfortable philosophy like a blade. The trials you encounter will introduce you to your strengths. Not your talents. Not your intelligence. Your strengths. The kind that are not visible until they are tested. The kind that do not exist until the fire makes them real. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding the forge. They soften at the first sign of discomfort. They choose the path of least resistance so consistently that they never discover what they are actually made of. And so they live, always mildly dissatisfied, always slightly less than they could be, and always, at some level, aware of it. The person who walks through the fire is not reckless. They are not suffering for suffering's sake. They simply understand that the version of themselves waiting on the other side of discomfort is worth more than the comfort they are surrendering. Every avoided conversation that should have happened. Every boundary that should have been held but wasn't. Every morning that began with someone else's urgency before your own intention. These are the fires you walked away from. And it is never too late to walk back. The forge is still there. The fire is still available. Every day contains a moment, usually small, usually quiet, where you can choose discomfort over ease, where you can choose growth over comfort, where you can add another layer of strength to the person you are building. You do not have to overhaul everything at once. The blacksmith does not plunge the entire sword into the fire in one moment. The work is patient, repetitive, deliberate, strike by strike, day by day. That is how you become unbreakable. Not in a single dramatic transformation, but in the accumulation of 1,000 small, difficult, chosen moments. The fire is not your enemy. It is the only thing that can make you what you were built to be. Part 8. The empty room, standing alone as an act of strength. There is a final frontier that most people on this journey approach and then step back from. It is the willingness to be alone, not abandoned, not isolated, but genuinely, peacefully, purposefully alone, without the anxious need to fill that space with connection, noise, or the reassuring presence of others. We are taught, from the earliest age, to fear this. Aloneness is framed as failure, as rejection, as evidence that something is wrong with you. The person without constant social engagement is pitted, or worse, suspected. We surround ourselves with presence, with people, with screens, with the endless ambient noise of a connected world, partly for genuine human warmth, and partly because the alternative terrifies us. But the alternative, true solitude, is not a wound. It is a resource. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded daily by an empire's worth of politics, conflict, and human demand, retreated constantly into what he called his inner citadel. Not a physical place, a state of mind. An interior space so well constructed, so deeply familiar, so thoroughly his own, that no external turbulence could reach its center. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This is not mysticism. It is engineering. The person who has done the interior work, who has sat with themselves in silence long enough to know who they actually are, what they actually value, what they will and will not accept. That person carries something most people can sense but rarely articulate. A settled quality, an unruffledness, a groundedness that does not depend on what is happening around them. And that quality, ironically, paradoxically, is magnetic. The person who does not need the room is the one the room begins to orbit. The person who does not need your attention is the one who earns it most completely. The person who has made peace with being alone, who is not performing, not seeking, not grasping, is the person others instinctively want to be near. Because what they feel, in the presence of that person, is something rare. They feel the absence of need. And in a world where almost every interaction carries the weight of someone's agenda, someone's loneliness, someone's unspoken demand, the presence of a person who wants nothing from them is strangely, profoundly restful. This does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean withdrawing from love, from friendship, from the full richness of human connection. It means entering those connections from a place of choice, not necessity. It means loving people because they add something genuine to your life, not because you are afraid of what your life looks like without them. That distinction changes everything about how you relate to other people. When you are not afraid to be alone, you stop tolerating what you would otherwise endure. You stop accepting crumbs because you are afraid of being without bread. You stop maintaining relationships that drain you, diminish you, or reduce you, because the cost of those relationships is now fully visible to you, and you have realized you can live without them. And in that realization, not as a theory, but as a lived, embodied truth, you become someone who cannot be easily manipulated, who cannot be leveraged by the threat of withdrawal or abandonment, who cannot be controlled through the fear of solitude, because that fear no longer has purchase in you. Stand in the empty room. Sit with the quiet. Do not fill it. Do not reach for the nearest distraction. Let the silence show you who you are when no one is watching, when no role is required, when nothing is being asked. If you can bear that room, if you can find not just peace but richness in it, you will have found the thing that makes you genuinely difficult to lose. Because the person who has themselves, truly, fully, without apology, is the person worth keeping. The return, becoming someone the world must reckon with. You started this journey a long time ago, long before this video, long before you knew the words for what you were feeling. You started it the first time you felt the burn of being taken for granted and swallowed it silently. The first time you gave more than was returned and told yourself it didn't matter. The first time you made yourself smaller so someone else could feel larger and lost a piece of yourself in the transaction. That was not weakness. It was a beginning that led, through its own pain, through its own accumulating weight, to this moment, to the decision, and it is always a decision, to be done with that version of the story. The Stoics did not believe in the mythology of effortless greatness. They did not speak of people who simply were noble, simply were disciplined, simply were unshakable. They spoke of people who chose those things, again and again, in the face of discomfort, inconvenience, disapproval, loneliness, in the face of every reason the world offered them to stay small. And they chose differently. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in the darkness of campaigns and governance and the constant weight of power, kept returning to the same reminder. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The resistance is not your obstacle. The resistance is your curriculum. Every person who questions your boundary is teaching you to hold it more firmly. Every relationship that cannot survive your standards is revealing itself as not worthy of your investment. Every moment of discomfort you choose to walk through rather than around is adding to the architecture of someone who cannot be dissolved by the world. This is not a destination. It is not a state you reach and then rest inside forever. It is a practice, a daily, renewed, imperfect, deeply worthwhile practice. Some days the forge burns hotter. Some days the silence feels less peaceful and more like grief. Some days saying no still costs you something. Some days standing alone still aches. That is not failure. That is the texture of genuine growth. It is the feeling of iron being made stronger, the friction that refines, not destroys. The world will always have demands. People will always have needs. The requests will not stop. The expectations will not automatically disappear. The ones who have grown accustomed to easy access will not graciously accept the boundary you draw. None of that is the point. The point is that you will have changed your relationship to all of it. Not the world outside you, the world inside you. The inner citadel that Marcus Aurelius kept returning to. The bedrock that Epictetus stood on regardless of his circumstances. The quiet center that Seneca insisted you never stop returning to, no matter what. Build that. Build it slowly, deliberately, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, no by dignified no. Build it in the mornings when you choose your own intention before the world floods in. Build it in the moments of silence you no longer rush to fill. Build it in the relationships you stop maintaining out of fear and start choosing out of genuine value. Build it in the decisions you make and stand behind without explanation. And when it is built, not finished, because it is never finished, but sufficiently built, you will notice something. You will not need to announce yourself. You will not need to demand respect or perform confidence or convince anyone of your worth. You will simply show up, exactly as you are, exactly where you stand, and the room will adjust. Not because you made it, but because you have finally stopped asking it not to. You were born iron. You have been softened by circumstance, shaped by other people's hands, corroded by years of giving what was never asked for and accepting what was never enough. But iron remembers itself. Given the right conditions, given fire, given pressure, given the deliberate work of someone who knows what they are making, it returns to what it was always capable of being. Strong, purposeful, shaped by its own design. That is who you are becoming. That is the work you are now doing. And it always starts, with the single, quiet, unshakable decision to treat yourself as someone worth protecting. The rest follows. If this video reached something in you, do not let this be the last time we speak. Subscribe to the Inner Citadel. This channel exists for the person who is done being reshaped by the world and ready to do the work of rebuilding from the inside. New videos go up regularly, each one designed to take you deeper. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay on the path. Keep choosing yourself.